welcome back. Welcome to Friend Crush. I'm your host, Amber Akilla. This is my podcast where I talk about stuff and things, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Tumblr, and Spotify, SoundCloud for music and mixes. And the meme page for this podcast is at friend.crush on Instagram. I really appreciate any feedback and thoughts and feelings that I receive from listeners of the podcast. It means so much to me. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. I've just recovered from a cold, so I'm feeling great about being able to speak again. I think you can still kind of hear it in my voice, but I'm really glad to have my health in 90-ish% capacity. I'm really excited to be introducing the first Boy Confessions podcast episode for Friend Crush with Amber Akilla. Basically, the premise of these episodes is me interviewing a guy anonymously about their perspective on dating, relationships, masculinity, just whatever comes to mind. I have like a framework of questions, but at the same time, I want to give like the guest space to just kind of riff and talk about whatever they feel comfortable talking about. Obviously, I think, it goes without saying that just because I have someone as a guest on my podcast doesn't mean I necessarily condone or like agree with everything that they say. But the point of these episodes is to just present information and entertainment up for listeners to get like, more insight, more perspective, which is basically what I think my podcast is about. Anyway, like I don't want anyone to necessarily think exactly the same way that I do, but I would hope that in the process of me sharing my thoughts, experiences, and perspectives, that this can like help listeners to then further interrogate or build an awareness of their own thoughts and feelings, etc., etc. So, without further ado, this is the first Boy Confessions episode for Friend Crush. I hope you enjoy. What is your moniker going to be for this episode?
Timothee Chalamet.
All right. Okay, Timothee Chalamet. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. You are the first guest on our Boy Confessions sub-series.
Thanks for having me.
How did we meet? And then introduce yourself.
Oh, man. I don't really remember. But I feel like it was all powerful women that got together, and then I was the only dude, and then I was like, oh, hey, in a very non-threatening way. And I was like, hey, I need friends. Doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy.
Yeah, through friends of friends, I guess. So let's start off with your age, location, job title, relationship status, and then we'll get into like your early life, because you're from the US, but you live in China. But I'll let you say it in your own words.
I live in Shanghai, Asian male, 33. This is probably triggering too. I'm creative director for a big international brand.
Trigger warning. I should have put that at the beginning of the episode.
But I'm one of those that doesn't steal ideas from other creatives, and I try to let them do their own thing. Yeah, I do that. I moved out to Shanghai a couple years ago now. And yeah, it's been great. I come from LA, born and raised. And what else you want to know? I'm like, classic LA boy. I love LA street tacos. Love Korean barbecue. What else? There's a spot called El Torino that's great in LA. I don't know. That's pretty much me in a nutshell,
Yeah, and you're currently single or dating or in a relationship?
Yeah, I'm in a relationship with a person. She's great.
Describe your early life. You said that you were born and raised in the States. What's your like family dynamic like, and your relationship with your siblings, if you have any? Or how do you think this has like shaped you as a person, the person you are today?
Yeah, so my family, I love my family. I love my mom. My dad is pretty useless, but I've come to like, understand that he's a good guy. I have an older sister who's always protected me my entire life, but like every kind of older sister, younger brother dynamic, it's a little bit confusing in terms of how to interpret that protection. And she just has like weird ways of. She's a Leo, so it's kind of like really intense of a relationship. But yeah, I think, you know, you hear kind of like sayings in the past where there's like a man of the household and shit, but I think that's kind of bullshit where, you know, my mom kind of played that role and was my mom. This, you know, she was kind of like the ultimate figure in my life and really, you know, is the reason why I get to do the, you know, I'm the person I am today. So you judge me on this podcast, you judge my mom, so twice.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Both my sister and my mom, they're two queens that I really look up to. I think if there's anyone in my life that has shaped my life for good and bad and all things, because, you know, especially my mom, she's been through some shit, so kind of looking at that, zooming out of her life, or just like looking at it from what I can like remember as a kid up until now, and realize that she's kind of still growing and like learning, and has things that, you know, it's interesting to be at the age I am now, and then also look back at fucked up situations that we were and understand why that happened and why she is the person she is today, and then taking all of that and then how that shapes my life and how I think, and you know what I mean?
Let's speak about like masculinity generally. What do you think has had like the most influence on how you understand masculinity, maybe growing up? Like, was it films or TV, people around you? Did you have any mentors growing up in terms of like male figures, or like anyone that like stood out to you in the past?
Actually, I guess there was one significant male figure. He was actually my tennis coach. Growing up, at a very young age, I was put onto tennis, right? My, you know, classic Asian parents wanted me to get really good. I got okay, private coach. He was the one, he actually helped me get my first girlfriend, I think, in terms of, I think before that, masculinity was like, I didn't even know what the fuck that meant, you know? I was just like a weird kid. I didn't, you know, I was a shy boy, and most of the things that my mom would tell me, like, you know, you have to, we didn't have conversations like, you know, what masculinity really meant. And I definitely didn't get any kind of inspiration from my dad. So in general, I live a majority of, you know, up until like maybe early high school days, just kind of just friends and skating around and just kind of doing like whatever teenage things. And then eventually I was like, oh yeah, I think maybe I like girls. And then, but I was too shy to talk to any of them. And then this incredibly like confident black man, you know, really good looking, amazing at tennis, but he's just, you know, he's from South Central and just has this, you know, he taught me just to like not really give a fuck about anything, you know, especially if I wanted to approach a girl. So I guess it did shift. I guess a little hint of masculinity came, you know, a little sprinkle from him on just like having the courage to talk to a girl. And I remember this one girl came walking. She was like this one little like emo, just listen to Bright Eyes and you know, My Chemical Romance and stuff. And I thought she was cool. She had like striped t-shirts and like this crazy hair, and I had the crazy hair too. And he was like, you like her? And I was like, yeah, she's okay, you know, timidly. And he was like, hold on. He goes up to her and he's like, hey, you think he's a cool guy? And she's like, and I guess she happened to kind of like notice me too, and she was like, yeah. And she's like, you guys should date. And then, you know, I was
now kiss.
But yeah, he's very much like that. He kind of just like, he just pushed me into the fire, you know. And that was cool. I mean, at the time, that was a big deal for me, and you know, it didn't really work out with that one, but that was a nice little first step into really loving and respecting women.
So what age was that? Did you go to like a co-ed school or
I went to public high school. So yeah, definitely good majority of males and females. I don't know what the percentage was. And
around what age would you say that experience happened?
Shit. I don't know what year is like freshman, sophomore, kind of year.
Like 14? 13, 14?
13, 14. Oh my god, I'm totally bullshitting. That's actually not the first like physical encounter I had with a girl.
Yeah.
But that was like my first relationship. Anyway, that was 13, 14. Yeah, I guess so.
But that was like an important, like one that stands out to you, obviously, because it's the one that you remember first when you think back.
Yeah, I think, I mean, really taking, having a point of view and taking control of, do I want a relationship versus like girls just kind of taking advantage of me, which was prior times,
Are there any other experiences that you've had that stand out in terms of like the way that you see yourself and confidence or assertiveness when it comes to life in general, or even just like your relationships with women? Because I'm sure like that was that was like a starting point, and then like maybe there was other events or relationships in your life that kind of like challenged or helped to evolve and develop.
Yeah, I mean, you go through life and you kind of develop this sense of confidence, right? Whether it exists in you or not. But I feel like I haven't, that kind of shy, kind of timid, side of me is still somewhat there. But I think at this point in my life, because I'm older, maybe it's because I'm in a relationship now, or I just like, the confidence has really settled in. But I think awkward moments like that are probably the most beautiful when, especially talking to a girl. So, you kind of embrace that, like, now I don't have Rob being like, hey, you guys should talk to each other, right? I'm just like saying to her, like, hey, maybe we should talk to each other. And she's like, what? And I'm like, what? So it feels like I have similar ways I'm interacting with a girl now, but now it's just like I don't really get nervous about it.
So you're more comfortable with yourself than before.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a skill kind of that you develop, right? I think people tend to overthink certain situations if they really put like so much equity into like this interaction. But if you're really just trying to get to know someone, then just start from scratch. If it's awkward, then
move through it.
Everyone feels it. You guys both feel it,
Yeah.
Awkward is it's like love. It's like the universal language, it's amazing. People just have to call it out. And then it starts like, that's the seed, that's the awkward seed. And then once you can kind of like nurture that, then that's like starting from negative.
Yeah.
And if you can move from there, then it can blossom into something special.
So do you think that like your understanding of confidence, or the way that you understand your own confidence, is maybe different to like the societal idea of male confidence that you were maybe, I don't know, conditioned with growing up? Because I feel like that's something that I observe. Common advice for men, to be like braggadocious or like in your face, that's kind of associated with like conventional ideas of confidence. But I personally feel like so much confidence comes from being comfortable with yourself, and that's going to be different from person to person. And I respect men that are just comfortable with themselves rather than like putting on an act or a show to try to like impress you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but everyone goes through, it's a journey, right? You have to see it, you have to experience it. I'm not saying that I haven't been through moments where I was like, I felt like too hot shit and I wasn't trying to be like, wore this watch on a date just to be like,
just to flex.
Hey, what's up? But yeah, just to flex. It helps when in your life you meet a ton of people, right? And the beauty of it is if you can hone in on like knowing yourself at an early age, then whether you're hard-headed about that or not, you kind of like almost are analytical about other people and like how they move in their life. I saw college as like a perfect example of that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to learn about business and and try to get good grades. It was like, I'm going to just understand the people that I'm just surrounded by, and I'll eventually have to compete with later in life. You kind of, with all the interactions, all the different dudes and females that you meet, everyone has their own style of promoting themselves, and I think if you can like really just take a step back, you almost like, if you can kind of like sit and listen to everyone else talking, then you can figure out like why you don't want to be like that, or
what you want to be more like.
Yeah, you know, I think, and you need people like that in your life. You know, I don't know about like your close inner circle, but you know, you need that dude that's like, I know this person and this person. Oh, I've been working with, you know, so that way you could be like, man, there's a balance of like kind of flexing and, you know, and being like a complete asshole about it, you know. I'm not saying that people around me have taught me, but I think really just kind of sitting back and observing. I mean, I've always felt like, you know, in every, you know, even in my closest group of friends, you know, I try to, I think I'm relatively, in general in life, I feel like an outlier, you know, like
an outsider or an observer.
Yeah, an observer, and you know, outsiders is so tricky because, you know, outsiders like feel like they're not really within, but I think I've met some amazing group of people that make me feel like I'm at home when, you know, even when they're strangers. But yeah, I think that's probably shaped. What was the question?
Just like what shaped your understanding of yourself, or like confidence in general, how you approach life.
Oh yeah.
But it's okay. The tangent's fine. We love the tangent.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
How do you describe like your the close relationships in your life? So like your inner circle, like how do you define like your inner and outer circle kind of? And like what role do they play when it comes to dating maybe? Like do you have a close group of guy friends? Do you guys discuss dating with each other and your relationships, or do you have like girlfriends that you speak to better understand women, or like how has that kind of like changed or evolved over time, if at all?
So for me, when I think about like best friends, like the super loyal ones, the ride or die ones, right? And I have probably like, I can probably count, I don't know, a total of like 4 of them that have stuck with me since I was like first grade, something like that. You know, 2 are guy friends. I also have some girlfriends that I consider really close. I don't know, best friend, like I feel like girls kind of pass around best friends, like they have like fucking 9,000 best friends. But you know, for me, it's like the fucking girlfriend too. It's like, that's a title. In terms of how important their kind of point of view is in like a relationship thing, there's probably, to be honest, I don't care, you know. I was gonna say, I guess I would, if they didn't like her. I think friends are so important, at least for me in my life, that if they absolutely hated her or despised her, and was like, you're changing because of this girl, you know, then I'd probably, you know, and I've dealt with that. I remember like in college or whatever. But if they said that, then I'd probably, at this point in my life, I'd probably take a step back and try to evaluate. But in general, you know, I like what I like, or I love what I love. So if they told me like, oh, she's, you know, I didn't really expect you to be with her, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. It's probably more like, you know, my mom or my sister being like, nah. then that would probably be
that would give you pause,
you know. I would have to, you know, dig deep and, you know, and see why. I'd have to do a little peeling of that onion.
Have you had that before?
I think for sure. No, maybe like unofficial girlfriends that like would be at like, I don't know, if I was living at my parents' house when I was like super young and they came in, they didn't say like, hello, how are you, Mrs. Blank, I'm not gonna reveal my name, you know. So if they didn't do that, then it was like fucking, you know, lights out for this girl. Yeah. You know, if they didn't approach my mom with some respect or some kind of small talk, then that bitch was out, you know. But I've only dealt with like 1 or 2 of those times. Yeah. And then the others were like, sweet ABG type girls, so they were all very nice.
Do you...
Actually, that's not true, but yeah.
Do you like seek advice from friends around you or like your mom and sister? Or do you usually just kind of like deal with relationship, I don't know, difficulties or challenges by yourself?
Wow. Yeah, I guess I've never actually been asked that, but I guess I have just dealt with it myself. I was always a relationship dude, so, and I always thought it was like, I always knew that if I was getting out of a relationship and I was going to get into another one, it had to not involve those certain things that I just could not deal with, or like I just didn't want. It just had to be like better.
Yeah.
So never, when you're with like your guys, it's just more of like, and things went left in a relationship, it was more just like, hey, I need to do something, right? They're kind of just like your boys, so they take you out or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember one situation where one ex came and she was like, she did not take the breakup well, and she was like, my security was like, hey, this your girlfriend is downstairs, should I let her up? And then I was like, absolutely not. She's on the text, she's like blacked out, she's like, I can't believe, like, what do you do? I'm coming up, I don't want to break up, shit like that. And then I remember it very specific. I was like, Eddie, we gotta go, we gotta get out of here, we gotta go like to Wena's house, and like we just gotta get out of here. And he was like, all right. I think he was like jerking off like midway through. He was like, all right, let's go, dude. Like those are your best friends. Yeah, but other than that, shit, man, like, yeah, I guess I just kind of consulted myself.
Yeah, or like try to deal with it with your partner, I guess, instead of seeking outside advice.
Yeah. I can also say, like, at a certain point, I had commitment issues too. Being in like long-term relationships and then taking like a nice little gap, few years to like really, I think before the one I'm in now, I've never been single for such a long time, by myself. It's, oh man.
How long was that?
That was like five, maybe 6 years.
Really?
And
Damn.
Like, yeah. And I think there's so much more life to live, but that was, and obviously there are moments of like temptation and loneliness and all of that, right? But the best part of that is just evaluating like like all the relationships prior, the type of dude, because I was definitely not perfect, right? I was definitely like, I had insecurities I would project, I had jealousy, all that shit, passive aggressiveness, all those things I still carry a little bit, but at least I had those 5-6 years to kind of be like with myself, with my own thoughts, like that was probably not cool. She was really...
He's been realizing things, everyone. He's been realizing things.
Yeah, but yeah, man, I don't know why everyone's trying to be in a relationship. Like, they should just have, until you find the right one that's also been in that same path, then it's great. Then it is absolutely, you can talk about anything.
Do you think it was like necessary for you to be not in a serious relationship, or like intentionally single, for you to be able to have those sorts of realizations? What were like things that you thought about, you were like, okay, yeah, I don't want to deal with that again, or like, this is something that I need to work on, this is what I want to work towards?
Every relationships, a lot of people kind of go into one after another, right? And you don't have time to really process what that previous one was like. So, and when you don't get time to like be with yourself and like smoke a J and just kind of be like, why did we break up, and you're just like fucking this other person, it's just distraction. It's just distraction on really honing in on a really meaningful conversation and learning from it. That little gap of time where I got to explore being single, it was those very, specific moments, like one, communication was huge, right? And I'm not talking about like, checking in and shit. I'm talking about like, especially when you're young, you don't know how to talk about like sex and the things that you want, and your desires, and if you want to test some certain things. It's not, it's not like spicing up the relationship. It's like literally like what do you like how do you like to be pleasured, or those are just like grown conversations you need to be able to have with someone you're going to spend a lot of time with, right? So I don't think I ever felt a comfort in having that type of conversation before. It was kind of just like, it was just a thing to do.
Yeah.
It was just, it was like, what else?
Like communication around feelings or like expectations as well. I think that's
I'm always a feeler. Yeah. I think, when you learn from the thing about when you do this, like, a lot of guys will do this kind of like passive aggressive thing and then be quiet, and then the girl will be like, oh, what's wrong? You'd be like, nothing, and then eventually it kind of blows up, right? Like blows up, like, oh, you did this, like I didn't fucking fuck with this. Like, so communicate. I say that to say like communication about feelings was never like a huge issue. It was almost, I just like, it just bottled up and exploded, and I've gone to a place where that's probably a little bit better now. But we all can work on that. Okay,
so you did used to, or you recognize like the masculine urge to just withdraw from communication around uncomfortable feelings or situations.
Hold on. I don't know if it was like, it's very specific. Maybe it was a feminine urge to mask my feelings. I don't know. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Ladies, I'm sorry. But yeah, maybe that was a little bit of overstimulated masculinity that was getting in the way of my, just poking at my ego a little bit.
So
I don't know. Okay, what else?
Okay, but wait, not to justify necessarily that kind of behavior, but obviously it's something that I think a lot of people deal with in their relationships. If a girl is going through that with someone that they're dating, what advice would you give to her in terms of how to approach it? Because I don't, like, say I was to say to you, like, yo, this guy that I'm seeing, he's just, like, ghosted for a bit. Everything was going fine and he got, like, this is the common scenario. Like, everything's going great and then the guy withdraws a bit, is not very communicative. The girl starts freaking out, isn't sure what to do. What advice would you give to a girl in that situation? And then to the guy as well. Like, what would you say to him if you notice that your guy friend's, like, withdrawn from his relationship that seemed to be going well?
Right.
How would you consult? How would you creative direct?
Look, if it was like a how would I creative direct this situation? One, I would look at the brief, right? I would just be like, how long were they actually together for? Because I think that's a huge part of it too, right? I think one, everyone has to be very honest at where they're at. In my situation, it was like a long-term thing. So, the effort that you put in has to be made, right? Because it's like, years and years of building, and, you can't just like let it go. Or you can, depending on where you're at in your life. Okay,
first advice to the girl, what would you say? If the girl was like, this guy that I've been seeing for, let's say, a few months, because that's usually when it's like, that's when it first comes up and you're like, what the fuck do I do? And like, I'm like, oh, I've been seeing this guy, it's been going well, and now he's like withdrawn a bit, I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
How would you...
Look,
obviously it's different, like case by case, but like generally speaking. Because I have my own thing that I would do, but I want to know what you would say.
If it's on some fuckboy shit, then, and it, like, everyone can feel this type of shit, right?
Yeah.
And, everyone's on IG liking shit, everyone's all up, you can track everything. You guys are smart, right? I don't know what the TA of this podcast is, but I'm sure everyone knows how to check up on everyone's activity. Say the dude is, has put you in a situation where you feel something for him, and and he's expressed some feelings for you, and he ghosts, then I would say fuck this guy because he's fucking on some other girls for sure.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding. I would say I'm trying not to be, because I gotta defend some dudes. Some dudes just go through it, you know. Some dudes like need just time to go through their own shit, you know. And they also probably have their own people also talking in their ear, being like, the reason friends are great and also like fucking terrible is that they have your back so hardcore, right? So what you're hearing is, fuck this girl, you know, let's get some shots and shit, we'll fuck on some other bitches, you know what I mean? And you know, and especially when you're young, it's like you gotta live your life. But if feelings are genuine, you know, the girl can take obviously two directions. She can kind of go, you know, just the real direct, like cut it off, which I think is more than likely for everyone listening on this one, more than likely the right move. But also, if you really care about this dude, then, you know, what's amazing about girls versus guys is their level of patience, right? Like, I think you guys probably have the craziest stamina in terms of patience. Like, and so if I'm saying, I don't want to be like, fuck this guy, and then you guys lose the fucking love of your life, you know. But at the same time, if you think this person is worth it, and you've scrolled through the activity and nothing sus is around, you know, most of everyone around him is saying he's a good guy, then treat him like his mom. You know, be like, hey son, what's wrong?
Or just give him some time, I think, and then assess. Do you think it's important?
Give him some time,
but then also try to, like, you know, shimmy the gate open.
I don't know what tool you're shimmying with, but you want to use like a butter knife, you know. You want to lather that thing up and let them know that you care, you know. And if they don't respond to, like, if they don't respond to like grace of like, hey, what's wrong, and you know, there's only so much that you really fucking have time for.
Yeah.
You know, it goes back to the beginning point of like, really understand where you guys are at, you know. If it's like a quick little thing, or you guys haven't established like actual depth in the relationship, then you know, zoom out. Yeah. Everyone zoom out, you know, figure that out by yourself. It's like, it's very easy, you know. Everyone, it's easy to judge everyone else, like fucking judge yourself. But yeah, if you care, then everyone has a different style of wanting to be talked to, wanting those questions. You know, you could be kind of like, what's wrong, what did I do? And you know, you can be like, look, when you're ready, you know, let me know. You could just not talk to them. Like, there's so many different things. Like, while you kind of evaluate yourself, also think about what you think that guy or girl would want to be. You guys get it, right? Yeah,
or like how much they really mean to you as well. I think sometimes it's also an ego thing, if it's like really casual.
Yeah.
I think if the mutual feelings are there, it's like, even if you fumble in terms of how you communicate out of it, you'll both be like committed to wanting to move through that, right? And if the mutual feelings aren't there, then the chips will just fall where they fall, and then you might just have to leave it. But like, what would you say to like your younger self, or like a guy that you see doing that doesn't necessarily have the awareness you have now? Or how has your awareness changed in terms of like how you would approach it? If you reach like a point where you're feeling like, okay, I need to withdraw. Like, do men even know why they need to withdraw, or they need to withdraw in order to figure out why they had to withdraw in the first place?
If I were to go, most of the time, and no one knows what they're doing because they're so caught up in the moment. You know, these crazy feelings just blind them from reality. So if I were to go back, I mean, I wouldn't change anything, because all of that, again, were important lessons that I needed, you know, as I try to move gracefully in, you know, my relationship now.
So like, what's the lesson that you would take from it, or the lesson you would pass on?
I would just remind myself, like, again, it's that patience that you guys have, that, you know, I tested, and she was there, and she was there like for a crazy amount of time. Like, think about, there's probably dudes just, I'm sorry to say, but like dudes don't do that. You know, they like are just like, that's too fucking much, you know what I mean? Or they go out and do some reckless shit. So I think it's just a reminder of, you know, my younger self being like, if I can just tell myself like, yo, you know, you're just being a little insecure, or, you know, it's not really like that, or, you know, she's really showing you love here, you know. She's really trying to be like, you know, and sometimes she wouldn't have done anything. Some people just get jealous for no fucking reason, right? Like, someone gives like a mix CD to someone, and then you're like, fuck, he wants to fuck, you know, like that's some like young kid shit.
Oh, so you mean like someone you were dating received a mix CD from someone else, and you were like, he wants to fuck.
Oh, like he said like fucking you know, the like best I ever had. Oh man, you need to listen to this dude Drake. And then I was just like, fuck Drake, fuck this dude. Like, he's like, you know, he's like, this dude's gonna blow up. And like eventually I come to, you know, really like Drake and respect him as an artist. But you know, during those times your emotions just get in the way, your insecurities get in the way, right? So again, just going back and telling myself like, look, you're overthinking this shit, you know, you're really testing your patience. Just be smooth,
be honest,
you know. It's not, no, I wouldn't tell myself to be honest. I would just be like, dude, just be cool, you know, like, just relax, you know. She's like, she's loyal, like, you trust her. Why are you like, you know, maybe it was because of the long distance shit, I don't know, because I played around with those a little bit. I guess I'm pinpointing a very specific relationship that was like, that chapter of my life was like overcoming insecurities, you know, like, or jealousy. That is a huge chapter that a lot of people have to move on from. You know, just understand, and you know, not that you just have to know that it'll exist, and you know, as long as you trust your person, you know, and you don't have any really deep trauma about people breaking that trust, you shouldn't have an excuse to like really not continue trusting whoever you decide to be with.
Have you ever like been cheated on or cheated on someone?
Wow, great question. I think yeah, I have. In my past, yeah. I think definitely, you know, those are things that you also have to learn from and really kind of understand why you did it. You know, again, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, and you know, there are reasons why things had to end. Yeah, that one's a difficult one. I always like, before, I remember like dodging that question a little bit, but now I kind of like, now since we're super honest on friend crush, I gotta acknowledge that I had to go through that mistake, you know, in myself, and really understand why I did that, or felt the need to, or was like, you know, well, and I don't know if you want to go through that, but it was something that I needed to go through and learn. So I reminded myself that I never want to be in something where I would act on that temptation ever again, you know? And again, that circles back to the communication, you know, that level of maturity you need to have in a relationship if you choose to be in a long term, because, you know, a simple conversation, an uncomfortable conversation, will kind of deter any kind of feeling of ever wanting to do that.
Yeah. So when you look back, do you have more insight into like why you got to that place and like why you cheated? Because obviously at the time you don't necessarily have the awareness or the insight. You're just kind of drawn by impulse or driven by insecurity? And then now when you've reflected on that, what was like, how's your understanding of that situation changed? And then, like you said, you don't ever want to be in a situation where you would feel the need to do that again. Cheating is a really like visceral topic for a lot of people because it plays upon like loyalty and trust, which are so important for intimate relationships and relationships in general. So I think being able to describe, like, looking back, what your thought process was or what the process was for you to get there and then coming out of it as well.
You know, I think when you're in a relationship, right, and it's a long-term one, then you guys are both riding together, you know. And I say you guys are riding together, but still you have your own individual lives, right? And at a certain point, that balance kind of tips. You know, I'm talking about like younger me too, but at a certain point, you know, you start to prioritize your own life. You know, a lot of times you take things for granted. You know, when things are just going kind of smooth, and then life kicks in, and you know, and I'm talking about like me and her, right? She's got her own thing, and she's so focused on that, whether it be career or a group of friends or whatever. I have career, I have, you know, my experiences. You almost, that ride together, you know, isn't together anymore.
So that there was like a lack of attention given to the relationship at a certain point.
For sure. I mean, it just feeds into just selfishness and recklessness. I think it's in everyone's like inherent nature to just do what they want to do and not really think about the consequences, especially when you're young, right? And you don't have like anything to really lose. But yeah, it was really that we weren't kind of like building together. I remember like the moment we decided to like you know, disconnect officially, it was kind of just like it was the same kind of environment of like, you guys are like in the same bed doing your own thing on like your laptop or whatever, and then I can think about it, I'm just like, yo, we haven't challenged each other, we haven't been intimate in like so long, you know, there's nothing that we're like growing from this relationship, you know. And even though I felt like kind of guilty for doing, you know, reckless things, it was almost like that relationship didn't exist in the first place. You know what I mean?
Had the fact that the relationship had become really emotionally distant been acknowledged before you got to a point of infidelity, or do you feel like you could have prevented infidelity if you'd spoken about it and like either put more into the relationship together or just broken up before you got to that point? I mean, obviously, like, it is what it is and you can't change it, but it's like, now if you are in a relationship where you might feel that emotional distance forming, how would you maybe address it differently so you don't get to a place of infidelity?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, because I was younger, I don't think my emotional capacity was at even, you know, at that mature state. So yeah, even if I could say, like, if I could, you know, tell myself to have that conversation, you know, with the person, or else I'm going to do this thing that I'm going to regret. Like, I don't know if I would have really had that conversation in an effective way, you know? And so, to be honest, like, look, I can look back at my life and say I have absolutely no regrets, you know? So I needed for that to happen.
So did they find out before the breakup? Or they don't know?
I don't know.
Oh, they don't actually know?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And then you guys broke up, like, when you were in bed together, sitting next to each other?
And you know, the young thing, like, you know, the girl, or, you know, someone will pack the bag for, like, 2 nights. Okay, I'm going to come over, you know, Monday, Wednesday. I'm going to be over at your place Thursday, Friday. And I remember we would just kind of be in the bed, and I remember it was like a fucking movie, you know. I remember I closed my I had finished, I closed my laptop, she was still working, and then I, like, just the slow, like, you know, slow close of the MacBook, and I was like, what are we doing? She looks to the side of me and she's like, takes off her glasses a little bit, she's like, what? It's like, we're not challenging each other, we're not learning, we're kind of just like roommates, you know.
That's like the death of a relationship, I think. When anyone describes to me that their relationship with their partner is like roommates, my heart breaks for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it totally is. It's just like, yeah, it's the worst thing. It's like you're still living, but you're just
existing.
You're not actually living your life. Yeah. Oh, you're just existing, but you're not living your life, right?
How old were you when this happened? Like late 20s?
Oh man. That was like mid 20s.
Okay. And you lived together?
Yeah, mid 20s. No.
Okay.
No, it was like the pack the bag sitch.
Oh, okay.
I was at her place during that time, and I hated going to her place.
Okay. So you initiated the breakup. Do you prefer to initiate breakups? Have you ever been broken up with?
I have not. I mean, like, I don't know. I think I remember in high school, you know, I'd fucking thinking I was in a relationship, you know, because she sucked my dick, but then she sucked some other dude's dick, and then I was like, I felt like I was heartbroken, and then I went into this huge, like, emo Elliott Smith phase. But that wasn't really real.
But generally, you're the one that ends entanglements.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Yeah. I guess not that it just, I guess for me, you know, I'm a feeler, right? And then also, like I said before, when I was younger, I would just kind of bottle things in, and then eventually it would just, you know, I like to blow shit up in any situation. You know, I have so many thoughts, so then eventually I just can't keep them in. So I'm like, yo, that one was a little bit more like, it was a peaceful one, but, you know, the relationship
The one that
before,
you just discussed, that was like a pretty amicable breakup. Like when you brought up that, like, what are we doing? They were like, what? But then also kind of agreed. Yeah. And you went your separate ways.
Yeah, that was good. I think it was like, you know, and I walked out. I think it was pretty, like at that moment we had acknowledged that we felt the same exact way, right? And we had to, and we were just growing apart, and we had to make that move.
Yeah.
And then it like maybe got a little bit confusing because, you know, she had time to think about it. I like set sail, so, and then I think for her, I remember she like had confronted me, like she didn't want to, you know, she wanted to try and do all these things, and for a long time I like held on to that, where I was like, maybe, because, you know, we were very, very serious, like marriage, like our parents, you know, their parents really brought me in, my parents really loved her, you know, so so that was like a very significant relationship. So when things are, you know, when you guys have that time together, and we both have some time to ourselves to really think about it. Unfortunately, I had already felt those, you know, those learnings, and, you know, what I wanted and what I didn't want, and, you know, I had already kind of wanted to move on and experience something else, or just, you know, be with myself or something.
How long was that relationship in total?
That was like 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Damn. In your early 20s.
Yeah, early 20s to like mid, yeah. And that's like, yeah, and once you get to like, and same for her, she was only like maybe 2 years younger, so, you know, at that moment, at least for me, like, you know, 25, 26, that's when you're like kind of your career goes from like super hustle mode to like things are kind of looking to make sense. Things are kicking, so, and you're getting crazy opportunities, and I think that probably also played a part where I had to like kind of move on, you know. I thought about my career and what I wanted to do in my life and how big I wanted to make it, even though I loved her at the time, and I really held on to I probably didn't really actually get over it for a couple of years looking back on it, but I prioritized myself, you know, like, even though when she was like, you know, in the future, like, it's like we're gonna be together or some shit like that, right? And I'm like hanging on to that for a little bit, for like 2 years, and then I'm just like, nah, you know, like, we're just different people. Like, when you're 25, things are like fun and everything. Like, every year is different for me. You really grow into who you want to be as like life goes on, and then things start to click. And yeah, anyway.
So I think that this is something that a lot of women probably are on the receiving end of, like you're dating someone and the guy gets to a point where he's like at a turning point in his life, usually career. It kind of is like you need to choose between like yourself and your goals and your path and a relationship. Like I think people, in my opinion, is that people underestimate the amount of energy that is required to sustain a healthy relationship. And at certain points in your life, you might just not have the capacity to do that with someone, even when you love them and you kind of need to pick between work and the relationship. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to find a way to describe, like...
No, I mean, that's true. I mean, to take it a step further, it's like relationships at that age are fucking not meant to... Everything is working against you, Like, I'm not, like, if you want to get into, like, the details, it's not just career, right? It's like... It's like the desire to like have fun and like think, like at that time you like think about all these different things that life is supposed to be, and you don't shape your like actual point of view, so you're just like, your mind is just reckless thinking about everything that we want to do, even if you didn't want to fucking do it. And this even if no action is being taken, it's just like you're entertaining every possibility and you think that you can do everthing and at the same time. And also the smallest fucking thing, right? You're like, your boys are having like a poker night, but then you know that your girl's not do anything that night or whatever. She's gonna like just stay home and read a book and stuff, and then you feel this like guilt. It's like, what fucking why? Like, just go, but those things build into this fucking unreasonable resentment. All you have to do is just like talk it out, or like be honest and just be like, hey, I really want to do this. Your girl will understand, and if she doesn't, then like, fuck, you guys talk about it. If she really still doesn't, then it's like, this bitch is crazy, Yeah. One thing that I've noticed is maybe like 2 generations ago, I think that if a relationship between a man and a woman is working, there is like an assumption that you're going to work towards marriage and children, and the woman can just give up whatever she's doing in order to dedicate her time to that. And I think now, like for me, I know a lot of women that are very career driven, and it's difficult to maintain a healthy relationship when 2 people have careers, or 2 people have their own like self-actualization they want to explore. And you just kind of need to be honest with yourself and the people that you're dating, like what you can and can't give or share, or like where you're actually at, what you actually want, what you can create together, I think. Oh, yeah. And that's why, And also women are expected to do everything, like to be able to maintain the relationship now and their career. And then men are just like, but it's my career. Like sometimes I feel like men also expect women to just pick up the slack, and they underestimate the amount of things that a woman is also juggling because she has to work too now. Yeah, I mean, that's... I don't know if this is like an indirect way to put me in the fucking general mailbox, but yeah, I think, look, when you come from all these relationships, you want to like do better, and like you learn all these things, communication, whatnot, and then once you find some, the right person, or person that you want to like reestablish something with, ideally you would have gone through all of these conversations. You have to have these conversations with them. Like, maybe it's because like where I'm at, and then conversations like about where you're at with your career, or like what you want for yourself individually, and then for the relationship. Right. And I guess I always thought of it as like a commitment issue for me, because it took me so long to like be like, okay, cool, like we're in this, right? But those are just things in the back end where I had to like really think about, whether I was directly asking her or not, or I just like knew just based off her actions. It was like, okay, cool. Like, were you speaking with your words, or were you just thinking in your mind? Jesus. No, I was observing, and I was like, again, just trying to just keep cool, and I was just leaning back and just like, as she was moving like the amazing, powerful woman that she is, I was doing the same, but I was also thinking about, cool, if this did get serious, does this work? How is she moving the way that makes sense for me, and vice versa, right? And Yeah, unfortunately, like, yeah, you know, dudes and honestly, and girls too, right? Like, because again, people are in it for themselves, especially when they're like, hold on, I don't want to say some like I'm gonna get canceled type shit right now.
Go on.
I think I lost my train of thought.
So how would you describe like your
My worst
what would you have
breakup?
taken from that experience?
I think sometimes you're just in a relationship to be in a relationship, and that's like a fucking dead, you know, that's a dead end. I think hold on, how did it end? I remember it was the night I dropped her off back home. She was like maybe 4 years younger than me, 3 years younger than me. But I had already started like work. I think she was still in school, like at the tail end of school, which was a fucking messy model to begin with, right?
When the girl's a student and the guy works full time, I think that's a very typical like age gap dynamic.
Yeah, so that's the most stressful situation you can be in. One being like young, two being young in your career and also young, and then three, all those things, and then also dating a younger girl. And I just remember I was, you know, I was so blind. It was like when you hit a number of years, you're just like, we've been together for 2 years, like we just got to keep it going. Like wrong, like absolutely not. And
Yeah,
I was
sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah, is that an actual term?
It's like a logical fallacy where people justify staying in something or continuing with something that ultimately doesn't really provide any benefit or value to them anymore just because of the amount of time and energy they've put into it. So it's like, oh, we've already been together for 2 years, so like what's another year? Even if when you're being honest with yourself, it's like this is going nowhere.
Fuck, yeah. You know, worst move, do not do that. And then what's even worse is when your pride gets in the way and then you're just like, sunken fallacy, right? You accept it, you continue to go with it, and then everything else around you kind of gets affected, right? Your friends are like not fucking with you because you're spending so much time with her. You know, they're telling you like, yo, she's actually like a terrible person, and you're just like, you don't know her, you know, like you don't see her the way I talk to her and shit like that, right? And again,
yeah, then you double down.
Yeah, it's like, you know, when you it's like holding Loki's scepter, you know, you just, all this evil energy is just like coursing through your veins, but you can't, you know, you're just so hypnotized, and like, you know, you just don't know what reality actually is. You don't know what you're fucking saying, right? Anyway, so after going through that, and then, but there is a moment where things like click, right? Like you just can't deal with it anymore. And then in my situation, I was just like, you know what? I am realizing my friends were right, you know? Like before I did the breakup, I remember confronting my friends and I was like, you guys were right. Like I was wrong. And you know, when you're young at that age and stuff, and you're apologizing to your friends, it's probably like a fucking, that's a thing, you know. So
huge move.
Yeah,
go back to the boys.
Oh yeah, go back to the boys. You know, they're going, and it's like a big annual group trip to the Bay. You know, to like, you know, just live life and shit. And then they're like, they uninvite you, and then I'm just like, you know, and I'm just like, fuck you guys, you know, I'm not going on this trip. And then after, I'm just like realizing like, what is life? Oh, do I really want to lose them? Oh, maybe they're right. Like all these things. So anyway, finding some truth in that. And then I remember however much time went on, and then I remember one night, again, this is kind of the bottle up and explode strategy that I like to take, but but we were fighting like so much, you know, so then it's not like she didn't know what was fucking coming, but you know, I remember I dropped her off and I was like, I don't want to be together anymore. And then she was like, what? You know, and I was like, we're just fighting so much. We're fighting so much, and like honestly, like I don't even know why I'm in this. You know, I'm like losing. I don't know who I am. You know, I'm just like, I just come and pick you up and I drop you off, and like it's just like a routine thing of just being in a relationship just to be in one. You know, like I said before, and she was fighting it like crazy. I remember she was just like, no, I can be different or whatever. You know, things that I wanted to hear. And then at a certain point I was just like, I do not want to be with you. I'm not going to marry you. I don't want to be with a type of person. Like, I was just like kind of very direct. It was probably not like cool at that time. And it probably makes sense why she like really blew up after and like tried to like
came to your apartment.
yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, that was kind of like the worst one. But honestly, another chapter that needed to be
experienced.
Yeah, you got to go through like some crazy ones too. Yeah.
Have you ever gotten back together with an ex? And obviously now you're in a relationship, but like maybe when you were single, if you had the opportunity to get back together with any of your exes, would you have taken it?
No. Once I get to a point, like, I don't know if it's like pride or ego or whatever, but I think I make, at least based off my experience, because I've been the one that kind of had that uncomfortable conversation, you know, you know, I thought about it for quite some time, you know, if not like...
Yeah, you're very sure when you reach that decision.
Yeah. You know, so in some cases it's like years in the making of just thoughts, and then just going on cruise control, and then eventually like I had to do it. So at that point I had already gone away, you know. I've already disconnected, and I just had to make it like kind of official.
Are you friends with any of your exes now, or?
I think, yeah, on social media.
Okay, so not like close friends. You're just like acquaintances, distant acquaintances.
I don't think any of my girlfriends can actually, you know, ex-girlfriends would say anything bad about me, but who knows? I mean, this is just my version of how it went down, right? They might have a completely different version. I'm very respectful to all of them, you know? Even like my first, probably like my first really significant, you know, I think all of them, I thought I was gonna like marry each one. Even ones that are like married, have a kid and stuff, like, you know, we still kind of just send respectful messages back and forth, and, you know, we're not like talking about fucking dicey things, but it's more along the lines of that. Just like
amicable, platonic, distant.
Yeah, just straight up purely acquaintance, you know, not like...
Yeah, I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
Miss you.
No, trying to fuck, no, it's not, nothing like that.
Keeping it 100.
Yeah, 1,000, you know. Plus, you know, I got my thing, they got their thing. I'm not trying to like, you know, on my... When you do the friend crush, quick bullet points on who I am, I'm not trying to, you know, have like homewrecker, terrible person as one of the bullets, you know?
So how would you say your like understanding of long-term commitment, or this sort of like conventional idea of like boy marries girl, nuclear family vibe, like do you think you are still striving towards like a traditional, quote unquote traditional relationship, or do you think, I don't know, like what are you looking for in a relationship in general, and how do you see commitment at this stage in your life?
You know,
or what do you think you're working towards, like in a relationship?
I think more and more, and this is very recent, I'm like challenging whatever like I've seen, you know, just growing up until now, like, you know, the traditional family, and you know, having a kid, having a like home, owning a home, building it. Like I'm wondering I do see different versions of that now. And then obviously like just from my own family being like sucked into that way of living, and I mean that image, right? And knowing how that kind of like in a way also broke us apart, but then also, you know, now like long term kind of put it all together too. So
do you think that when you were younger, there was like a keeping up of appearances of like a perfect family that wasn't mirrored in reality? And now like you think about whether that image is as important as it was made to seem to you when you were younger because of like your experience?
Oh man, of course. I think whatever we're dealing with now in terms of like what you think, you know, you look like or how you're perceived to other people, like I think about, you know, my mom and dad, you know, as like immigrants coming to the country and them looking a certain way, right? Especially as like minorities trying to like fit in Beverly Hills, or, you know, getting that car that is that kind of matches up against everyone, and you know, and that really affecting, like, you know, money really came down to a lot of things like back then, right? But keeping up like in playing this status was also something that was almost like non-negotiable, which is so sad. Which is so sad, and ultimately things that older generations that like our parents live in, you know, probably are still kind of getting out of today, you know, and like finally living their life, that freedom that they get to experience now. And looking back, they're like, I really didn't need that Benz, I didn't need that, you know, watch or whatever. Understanding that and seeing it all, like, but ultimately it was all to give their kids like an opportunity, right? You know, to like fit in or
provide a better life for their kids.
Yeah,
as well.
and exactly. And, you know, as a kid, you're just kind of like, that allows you to just kind of, even if you were poor, you never felt poor, right? You just kind of like blindly just go through. As a kid, you don't have to think about anything else, right? Just have fun and be with friends, because they played this like facade. But I just see so much like pain, you know, pain from that, as I like, you know, when I have conversations with my mom now, like she can, you know, when she tells me like I am like completely free, or she got to a place where we're, you know, we're just like in an amazing place as a family, like I can understand that journey, you know, and all the spikes in it. Anyway, I bring that up because that obviously has a huge effect on my perception of like this perfect family thing, you know, because, you know what, there is no perfect family, you know. I think even when you see, and I think that's like a beautiful thing, you know. I think as much as times were hard for ours, like I honestly I do think we are like perfect in our own little way, like. And I know like crazy the families that I grew up in, I was just like, wow, they are so great, and I love going to my friends' house and eating their food more than I love mine, you know, like, because, you know, and maybe they were in a better situation. It was like, and then when I think about it now, I'm just like, our imperfect perfect family is exactly what is right for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I take it into what I want, right?
Was there a stage where you thought that like that's what you needed to aspire to, or that's what you were subconsciously working towards, and then you kind of reached a point where you started to question it? Or like how do you think your like approach has evolved?
I mean, I think it was just very, you know, I was very neutral, and like in my life I was just like, okay, cool, yeah, like I would love a wife, I would love maybe 2 kids, like, you know, I would love to send them to school, USC, like whatever, like shit like that, right? Like shit that is so generic and like, you know, who the fuck cares? Now I'm just like, look, I want an independent woman that has her own thing, has like, you know, is doing her thing, getting her bag, I'm getting mine, you know, and together we can and we can further build on that. We can like join forces. We can get an ultimate crew. We can build one from the ground up, like exactly how we want. You know, if we did want kids, like, okay, cool. Like, we're going to have a rad ass kid, you know, maybe it's not traditional school. I'm definitely not going to like, I got lucky being in like public school, and, you know, the drugs that I did were not like super hardcore, like, but it's not heroin, like class 2, like, you know, it was just like a little bit of weed. Yeah, like, you know, man, maybe I can talk to my person. Maybe it's like art school, or maybe I'm open to like homeschooling the kid, because I don't want, you know, maybe we can teach them a little bit better. Like, I'm open to the most untraditional, you know, thing. I also was like, fuck, man, I'm born and raised in LA. I always thought I was gonna like live and die there, you know, and I've bought properties there, and, you know, I still, you know, up until now, I'm like, shit, can I be in a different place? Like, do I need to be settled into one place? Do I need the, you know, backyard and a pool and the big house and stuff? And I still, like, don't get me wrong, like, I have that desire still ingrained in me, because I just grew up knowing that was supposed to be part of my life. So I'm still like,
or
unraveling
assuming that
that
it had to be. Assuming that it had to be. So you're still just like negotiating within yourself, or like exploring within yourself these different like possibilities, alternatives.
And I'm just like, you know, that was the definition of success in the relationship or whatever, right? Or what you're supposed to do. Now I'm like realizing I can do it can supposed to be whatever, you know. Like, also let's take into account her vision of the future, right? So it's not just about my, like, exactly what I want. I mean, even with the person with now, I'm just like, you know, I even have, and I consider this one of those uncomfortable conversations that you have to have, right? Like, do you want kids, or like, do you want a house with the backyard and the pool? Like, did you ever imagine it? And she's like, she just doesn't even know that life, you know, because she comes from like these smaller metropolitan, like, you know, Asian cities, you know, and those are just like a little bit like, you know, their entire life they have like condos and, you know, elevator people and shit, and like, and I'm just like, that's like weird, but maybe I'm down for it. Like, everything is being challenged like real time, so I don't know. It could be kind of anything, or maybe it's who knows. Still talking through it.
Rather than like being attached to one thing and thinking that's how it has to be, now you're like, it could be this, it could be that. See how we feel, see how we go.
I don't know what like happiness is supposed to be, but, you know, I feel good about the person I'm with, and we'll figure out what that version of
success
version of life is supposed to be. Yeah. I mean, I already feel successful, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's just a state of mind. You know, okay. I have everything that I need.
Yeah. Oh, Timothy, that's beautiful. Okay, so final closing remarks. Please reveal your star sign or your personality type, if applicable. I didn't want to have this at the beginning because I don't want people who are like really into astrology and stuff to like make assumptions. But I think it would be funny just to see like at the end if there's any correlation.
Yeah, I'm a Taurus.
You don't know your moon sign or your rising sign?
I think I'm like Taurus all the way. The arrows go all the way up.
Okay. And then do you know your MBTI?
Super duper Taurus.
Type?
I'm an INFP.
Wow, me too.
Really? Yeah, I don't know who we're compatible with, but the girl that I'm with now, that you know, seems pretty compatible.
Love that for you guys. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Okay, and then final question. Based on what you know about me or how you know me, what kind of man or relationship do you think I'm prone to dating, or do you think would be best for me?
Holy shit, that's such a ending question. I think what you deserve is a confident man that will challenge you and, you know, your friend crushy ways. You guys, you know, you and your audience probably knows what I'm talking about. But we'll love you for that through and through. I think he probably has to be tall, and, you know, good looking. I don't think it matters where he's from. I think what you're prone to is probably that, but like the devious version of him. I don't know. Like all you girls, I'm sorry, you know, you just gotta pick them well. You know, there's still a few out there. I don't know, but I think, you know, you guys, I don't know, not really. I'm not worried. I think one dude is gonna come and swoop you off your feet, and then you can be like, "Oh my god, fuck you! What are you trying to do? No means no," and then you eventually say yes because he's a good guy.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for being a guest.
No problem.
I love this
Thanks for
episode.
having me.
I think you provided lots of really great insights into your experience, your learning. I really appreciate the
thanks.
honesty that you brought to this.
No problem. Yeah, that was good. That was good to kind of talk about. I don't think I've ever talked about it like that, you know, in a accelerated way. Or not with
Thank
myself.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.